Hello everyone, welcome back to a new episode. I've been going through the word justice in the Holy Bible, and I found some interesting things that I wanted to share with you. Now, before anyone goes into assumptions here, I won't be trying to show what is better, who's more accurate, what's more truthful, what's this and that. That's not my purpose, but rather my intention out of this episode was to find mutual connections between the Old and the New Testament, the Holy Bible, and the Quran. Now, that's not to say that there's anything wrong whatsoever in discussing religion, which religion is right, which religion is not completely right, what's the actual word of God, what's not the word of God, all of these things, absolutely fine. However, I think the more you focus on the truthfulness of one religion rather than the other, people tend to start losing focus on specific virtues that many religions have in common, specifically monotheistic religions. So I decided upon myself to start researching a couple of virtues or ethical codes, morals, values that religions share together. And I thought I'd look into the Bible first, the Old and the New Testament, and then go to the Quran and see exactly what it says with the same word. Now, like I said before, this is no attempt to try and show that my religion is right. I personally myself am a devout Muslim, and I believe that the Holy Quran is the only true, full word of God that we have in between us. That's not to say that there aren't any other religions, obviously have their own truths as well, and I will be trying to find some common language and things that we can use on a daily basis that will help us go about our daily lives, maybe help us implement new systems that we need, and couple of tips maybe for people in power, because to be honest with you, one of the most amazing things that I found is to do with social justice. And before I reach into that, I wanted to mention that the words and phrases that I'm going to be reviewing from the Holy Bible, so the Old and the New Testament, will be the New International Version of the Bible. I basically reviewed a couple of versions and I saw that this was the most popular and sold one globally. I know there are obviously different versions of the Bible, King James Version, other obviously sects versions. However, this was the most popular one, so I stuck with that one. And I distributed the research between the Old Testament and the New Testament. And after I finished it, I highlighted some key chapters that I found interesting and that could be relevant. And then I went to the Holy Quran. Now, in terms of the Quran, there's only one version. It was taken from holyquran.net, and I speak Arabic, Hebrew, and English. So I took a translation from a verified website to the Holy Quran, and I entered it following the copying of the phrases in Arabic. So the word that I was looking for is justice. We talk about social justice almost every day of our life. Equality boils down to social justice. Politics, lots of it is to do with justice. The legal system, justice. Equality between the poor and rich, justice. Helping developing economies worldwide, justice. We want justice. Everyone is very hungry, thirsty for justice. So I thought, let's start with this specific word, this very high moral code, and see what the Bible has to say about the word justice. So it was mentioned 130 times in the Bible, 115 of which in the Old Testament and 15 of which in the New Testament. And some of the most interesting phrases dealing with justice in the Holy Bible I found begin with Exodus. And this was probably the key one and the most significant verse that I found. It's in Exodus 23:2. Do not follow the crowd in doing wrong. When you give testimony in a lawsuit, do not pervert justice by siding with the crowd. Now, I stopped after I read that verse and I started analyzing it. And I found it very meaningful. Do not follow the crowd in doing wrong. How many of us do the complete exact opposite? Follow the crowd in doing wrong whilst not realizing it even. Generally, you're being fed a specific rhetoric and you're required to believe it. Most people don't even analyze it. We constantly see snippets of stuff. This person said that, this newspaper said that, and what's even worse, with the new social media, like TikTok for example, some people started taking news as a given from these sources, especially the younger ages. There has been a research not very long ago about teenagers and where they get their news sources from, and the vast majority of them said TikTok and Instagram. Now imagine, and when I say TikTok and Instagram, it's not from a verified source on these platforms, but rather a general source. Let me give you an example about myself. I know people who have seen completely fake and made up videos on TikTok, and they assume them to be completely true. Things to do with wars in the Middle East, the war in Ukraine, other conflicts around the world, made up videos, sometimes they're video games, and they believe that it is absolutely true. And I was baffled. Now obviously I have background in graphic design, so you can kind of easily tell these things. But seriously, some people, and not only the younger generation, I'm talking 60 plus, okay? 60 plus watching videos on TikTok, fake made up videos, so very similar to video games, believing that they're absolutely true. It's absolutely shocking. Now, going back to the verse, following the crowd. Nowadays, the risky part is we're not just talking about following the crowd. We're talking about following the crowd with no basis whatsoever, without scrutinizing the crowd, what the crowd has to say, what they believe in, what did they establish their ideas on, or the things that they want me to believe in. Now, I gave social media as an example. If you go to traditional media, it gets worse, because when you look at traditional media, we obviously are fed a specific rhetoric. The people who write the script of that rhetoric, and we have a very good example in what we had during COVID days, you're just constantly fed a specific rhetoric that you're supposed to believe, and you must follow and comply. If you don't follow and comply, you risk being completely banned, even on social media. And we've seen so many examples. I mean, videos that we were watching on a regular basis from massive channels, people who bring a variety of diverse people with different backgrounds, all sorts of knowledge, coming to bring their valid opinion, and some of them even from the medical profession. You were not hearing the other side when it came to COVID. You were required to believe a specific rhetoric. You were fed to believe it and obey. That's it. Lockdown, you need to be locked down. Giving up your freedom, give up your freedom, fine. You need to take a vaccine? Yeah, of course I'll take a vaccine. You need to take it 4 times a year? Yeah, absolutely, no problem. Anyone who was even suggesting anything otherwise was like seen as, whoa, And you'll have a comment next to their channel or profile. Oh, COVID, this is what the government says. This is what the NHS says. This is what the health and whatever says. So, when it was suitable, you were being fed that rhetoric. You must believe it. If you don't believe it, then be very careful. Cancellation. Ban. Ting. Gone. That's it. And I believe that was an eye-opener for many people. Now, during my last years at school, I specialized in media and news production. And from back then, we were taught on how spins work, how the media lies, how you create false news, how you stage things to go ahead and do stuff, how you have, for example, false flags, fake news, all of these things. So there was pretty much of an awareness from a very long time ago. However, when you talk about the general population, it's much more difficult to show them the things that you actually believe in, or to even open some people's eyes about the things that they see on a daily basis and that they absorb. And I found it very insightful for myself, especially as a teenager, looking at these things, because if you're not from a very kind of politically aware background or politically aware family, or no one close to you has been very much into specific subjects that were controversial or that had very much of a hype around them, then you can easily get lost in the things that you're constantly fed. And it's important, it's highly important, it's crucial in fact, to sit back, take a step, catch your breath, analyze these things before you follow them. And going back to the phrase, do not follow the crowd in doing wrong. We're not just talking about false information, wrong information, misinformation. When you give testimony in a lawsuit, do not pervert the justice by siding with the crowd. The other dimension, the second part of this verse, is most likely, it feels like it's a message for people in power. How many times do we see people in power going ahead with things that are completely unjust, unfair, can oppress people, can even kill people, just to please the group that they have around them? We see it on a daily basis, all across the world. And I thought to myself when I read this verse, oh my God, if the Western governments only took that verse and implemented it. Imagine. Moving on from that verse, I had a couple of other verses that I found very interesting. I'll read out some of them to you. This one is very similar to the one above because it's Exodus 23:6. Do not deny justice to your poor people in their lawsuits. Look how they focused on the poor. Poor, rich, poor, rich. Leviticus, do not pervert justice, do not show partiality to the poor or favoritism to the great, but judge your neighbor fairly. Again, similar spirit to the ones before it. Another one, follow justice and justice alone, so that you may live and possess the land the Lord your God is giving you. The wicked accept bribes in secret to pervert the course of justice is another one. That's in Proverbs. Another one in Proverbs. A corrupt witness mocks at justice, and the mouth of the wicked gulps down evil. Proverbs again. When justice is done, it brings joy to the righteous and terror to evildoers. Ezekiel. The people of the land practice extortion, commit robbery. They oppress the poor and needy and mistreat the foreigner, denying them justice. Hello, Home Secretary, Home Office, anyone? Is anyone listening? I will betroth you to me forever. I will betroth you in righteousness and justice, in love and compassion. That's in Hosea. Another one is, but you must return to your God, maintain love and justice, and wait for your God always. Amos. There are those who hate the one who upholds justice in court and detest the one who tells the truth. And the final one that I found very interesting was in Zechariah. This is what the Lord Almighty said: administer true justice, show mercy and compassion to one another. Which leads us to the Holy Quran. The word justice, adl in Arabic, in its root, is found 24 times in the Holy Quran. I found a couple of verses that were very relevant. Some of them even show some similarity to the ones I found in the Holy Bible. One of them is in Surah Al-Baqarah. وَاتَّقُوا يَوْمًا لَا تَجْزِي نَفْسٌ عَنْ نَفْسٍ شَيْئًا وَلَا يُقْبَلُ مِنْهَا شَفَاعَةٌ وَلَا يُؤْخَذُ مِنْهَا عَدْلٌ وَلَا هُمْ يُنصَرُونَ. Or, in one English translation, guard yourselves against the day on which no soul will be of help to another, no intercession will be accepted, no ransom taken, and no help will be given. Another one very interesting verse that I also found was إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُكُمْ أَن تُؤَدُّوا الْأَمَانَاتِ إِلَى أَهْلِهَا وَإِذَا حَكَمْتُمْ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ أَن تَحْكُمُوا بِالْعَدْلِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ نِعِمَّ مَا يَعِظُكُمْ بِهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ سَمِيعًا بَصِيرًا. Indeed, that's one of the translations in English. Indeed, Allah commands you to return trust to their rightful owners, and when you judge between people, judge with fairness, or justice, obviously. What a noble commandment from Allah to you. Surely Allah is all-hearing, all-seeing. Another one in Surah An-Nisa. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين بالقسط شهداء لله ولو على أنفسكم أو الوالدين والأقربين إن يكن غنيا أو فقيرا فالله أولى بهما فلا تتبعوا الهوى أن تعدلوا وإن تلووا أو تعرضوا فإن الله كان بما تعملون خبيرا. Or the English translation for this is, O believers, stand firm for justice as witnesses for Allah, even if it is against yourselves, your parents, or close relatives. Be they rich or poor, Allah is best to ensure their interests. So do not let your desires cause you to deviate from justice. If you distort the testimony or refuse to give it, then know that Allah is certainly all aware of what you do. Another very interesting one in Surah Al-Ma'idah. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين لله شهداء بالقسط ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. O believers, stand firm for Allah and bear true testimony. Do not let the hatred of a people lead you to injustice. Be just, that is closer to righteousness, and be mindful of Allah. Surely Allah is all aware of what you do. Notice that the hatred of a people leading you to injustice. This is the key one in this verse, which I found very, very inspiring in many ways. Because how many of us, if you don't like someone, you tend to like, yeah, I don't like him, I don't care about him, let alone hate him. Imagine if you hate someone. Yeah, why would I be just him? I hate him anyway. He's this and that. No. It's an order from Allah to be just to them. Another one, and this one is very interesting because it relates justice to truth. وَمِمَّنْ خَلَقْنَا أُمَّةٌ يَهْدُونَ بِالْحَقِّ وَبِهِ يَعْدِلُونَ. And among those we created is a group that guides with the truth and establish justice accordingly. Now note, this is a close translation to Arabic, and I even see that there's a comment here, with it rather than accordingly. So, and among those we created is a group that guides with the truth and establishes justice with it, as in with the truth. The last one that I found very interesting, obviously there are a lot of verses, but this one was also very spot on. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. Indeed, Allah commands justice, grace, as well as courtesy to close relatives. He forbids indecency, wickedness, and aggression. He instructs you, so perhaps you will be mindful. Now, number one, I saw a similarity between the justice between the rich and poor in both of them. If you remember the verses, some of the verses in the Holy Bible talked about focusing on the poor and obviously not following the crowd in anything unjust and not good for the poor people. And similarly with the Quran, you have the verses that tell you, even if they were rich or poor, you must be just. And in another one, if they're your relatives, if they're your close ones, and to be mindful, even if you don't like a certain people, if you hate specific people, not to be unjust for them. I hope you enjoyed all of these verses, and once again, just kind of a disclaimer again here. This is no attempt by any means to neither unify religions, because each religion has its own specific things that differentiate it from other religion. Like I said, I myself, I'm a practicing Muslim, and Islam is a very straight up monotheistic religion. The oneness of God, for example, it has differences than the Trinity and all of these things. There is no attempt here to combine anything together. However, the purpose of this, and I may go ahead with a couple of other interesting episodes following this with other virtues or ethical codes that are very shared amongst monotheistic religions. The purpose of this is to find those virtues that unite people that we might forget or not focus on, and we can easily get distracted with the conflict or with the division or all of these things, because I mean, since day one really, lots of people started using religion as a tool for control, as a tool for division, because it's one heck of an easy tool to control people with. Only thing you need to do is obviously claim your righteousness, that I'm on that path, therefore I am a representative of God, you know, some people would claim that, and you need to follow me. Obviously, historically, in the Christian world, you had obviously the church having control. That's why you had that evolution towards secularism and the separation of church and state and the Islamic world, you also had prolonged periods of people who were almost acting on behalf of God in many ways and forcing people to follow them, and seeing every person who differs from them in belief or even in many times interpretation. Imagine an interpretation as an infidel. Now, who does that help? At the end of the day, and I firmly believe that the word of God, the word of Allah, is true. Absolutely. No denying. Our understanding of it will be completely, diverse. Each one of us will have his own interpretation based on the level of knowledge, the background, the upbringing. Who did you hear? Who did you get your knowledge from? Which institution did you go to? What kind of sect you follow? All of these things combined. And I've always personally tried to take the best out of each location. Even when I speak religiously, I follow no sect in Islam. I believe in Islam as a religion. And in terms of sects, interpretations, or schools of thought, lots of them came with very good things and very good interpretations. However, I will never submit myself, I will never restrict myself to a specific interpretation of a specific school of thought. And that's it, because it would just limit you. And I think it's very, very important when you talk about these things to get an insight about what you're talking about, and getting that information, interpretation, and jurisprudence from several schools of thought, and not restrict yourself to one school. That's when I talk about Islam. Obviously, when with Christianity you have a similar aspect of interpretations. You have much more sects, obviously, in Christianity. But that's why when I was initially thinking about this series, I thought I'm going to restrict myself specifically to the Bible and the Quran, because if you go outside that, you will start delving into way too many things. So I hope you enjoyed it, guys. Let me know your thoughts. We'll catch up soon. Take care.